Yo, what is up, gamers and movieers? This camera is making my face look fucking weird, man. Is this a filter? Today we are going to do my yearly series where I rank my favorite films of the year. I got a nice top 10 for you guys. And without further ado, let's jump right into this. To start off our list, coming in at number 10, we got Fast X, the newest installment of the Fast and Furious franchise. This is the first half of a two-parter finale for the Fast and Furious franchise. And I just thought it was a really fun movie, really good, some good comedy in it, some good action scenes. I really enjoyed Jason Momoa's performance as the villain. He plays an almost Heath Ledger character. He basically is just playing Heath Ledger Joker. And yeah, it's just super goofy, fun. The plot does get a bit convoluted. There's a lot of sort of retconning stuff. There's a scene where it's revealed that, oh, Jason Momoa has actually been here the whole time. He was in the background of Fast 5 and you didn't even realize. And then they reshot this iconic scene from Fast 5, editing him in. It was a little bit much, but overall I think it's a very fun movie. Moving on to my number 9 movie, that will be Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, a new Dungeons & Dragons movie. I've never played Dungeons & Dragons. I don't really know much of anything at all about it, but I did enjoy this film. It's kind of an action comedy and becomes kind of a heist film halfway through the movie. It's just very, very fun. They play around with a lot of, neat fantasy concepts. There's this one scene where they basically get a portal gun, like from the game Portal, basically, and they use that in a lot of creative ways to pull off their heist. I thought the comedy landed the majority of the time. There's a fun scene with a very obese dragon that tries to eat them. I just really enjoyed the film. And yeah, moving to our number 8 pick, we got the Super Mario Bros. Movie. This is the new Super Mario Bros. Movie based on the game Super Mario Bros. And yeah, I might be biased because I'm a very big Mario fan, but this was an excellent film. The movie is filled to the brim with references to the games. And it's not even just really a Super Mario Bros. Movie. They also incorporate some other properties as well. The Donkey Kong games and the Mario Kart games take up a pretty big portion of the film. So they kind of incorporate a lot of stuff, even if you're not really a fan of the mainline Mario games. And I thought it was really cool, this kind of world that they've built. And yeah, I think it'll be cool to see what properties they sort of branch off to next. I thought the casting was really good as well, especially Jack Black as Bowser was very good, very funny. My least favorite casting choice was probably Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. He very much is just playing like his normal Seth Rogen self. He didn't really feel like Donkey Kong. It just felt like Seth Rogen. He even does the iconic Seth Rogen laugh halfway into the movie. There was also this one character, I think it was called Luma or something from the games, and he does a lot of very kind of dark humor. He's in this jail cell, and he's constantly talking about how he wants to just end his own life and existence is pain. And there was some very dark humor, especially for a children's movie, that I thought was pretty funny. And I just really enjoyed the film. The comedy lands. Everything they brought in from the game was very cool. You don't have to play the games to enjoy it necessarily, but I think playing the games definitely elevates the movie a lot. I think Mario fans will love this movie. Moving on to our number 7 film here, we have a film that I feel like a lot of people have kind of forgotten about that came out this year. Creed 3, the third installment of the Creed franchise, which is the successor to the Rocky films, basically. We have Michael B. Jordan playing the main character, Adonis Creed, who was trained by Rocky. And this is definitely my favorite installment in the Creed franchise, and maybe even in the whole Rocky franchise. I think this is the first film in the franchise where they have the two opponents actually be like people that knew each other, that were former friends, and now are, enemies fighting each other. And setting up the relationship between these two characters makes you care about the fights so much more than any previous film in the franchise. The fights are also the most visually interesting that they've ever been in a Rocky or a Creed film. They do a lot of cool like slow motion effects where they're like following the fists through the air. There's some good gore in this movie as well. And also there's a fight at the end where they you see kind of illusions in the person's head while they're fighting. And I think it all came together to make the fights just really interesting to watch, even if you're not a boxing fan. I think the performances of the two main characters was really good. And they did a good job kind of fleshing out their relationship and making you actually care about these characters and the outcome of the fight. And yeah, it's just a banger of a film. Unfortunately, this is the first film in the franchise without Sylvester Stallone. Apparently, there was some sort of issue with kind of a beef with Sylvester Stallone and the director, I think, that resulted in him not wanting to be in the film, which was unfortunate, but I think the film works even without Sylvester in it. And moving on, number 6, we have a film that I really enjoyed this year, a newer film that just came out, Godzilla -1. This is a Japanese film. You gotta watch it in subtitles. And yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed this film. I've never seen any of the other Japanese Godzilla films. Apparently this one's a reboot, so I don't think you really have to see the other ones. But yeah, this movie was a masterpiece. Not only is Godzilla excellent in the film, the characters are also really excellent in the film as well. We follow a failed kamikaze pilot.
For 20 years I was a failed kamikaze pilot back in World War II. I just couldn't die.
Who, pussied out at the last minute before he was supposed to, suicide himself. So he kind of feels like a failure, that he's failed his country. And then he has another kind of cowardly incident where he runs away from Godzilla, leaving his men to die. So this dude really feels like a failure and feels like he needs to prove himself. And that's kind of what the story is centered around. They do a very good job making you invested in this character and his new family that he's kind of acquired at the beginning of the film. And then Godzilla just wreaks havoc on Japan. He destroys everything. This is the most powerful I've ever seen Godzilla. I feel like in the American ones, he's really just a giant T-Rex almost. But in this one, he's like a fucking Super Saiyan. He can explode like entire cities with his breath. It has like an atomic explosion every time he does it. Yeah, Godzilla really looks real in this movie. The destruction looked real. Godzilla also has like Wolverine healing powers, which I haven't seen in other Godzilla films. And this really is a masterpiece of a movie. The only thing I didn't like is there's a few moments where they kind of, bring characters back from the death a little bit. Not really a big fan of the ending, honestly, but I think overall it's a really good movie and will stick with you for a while after you watch it. Moving on to number 5, we have a film that had a very mixed reception that I really thoroughly enjoyed, was The Flash. The new DCEU film. We finally got a Flash movie. And yeah, I really enjoyed this film. This is a multiverse movie, which is, the new trend now is to do a multiverse in every movie. The Flash's mother died when he was very young, and he wants to sort of bring her back. He realizes he can time travel if he runs fast enough for some reason. So he goes back and brings her back. So him trying to alter time to save his mom's life accidentally creates this whole branching timeline, which incidentally happens to be the same timeline as the Tim Burton Batman movies, those original 4 movies. And we get to see Michael Keaton's Batman return, and he is absolutely epic. One of the scenes in this movie I think is the best Batman action scene ever done. A lot of really great action in this movie, a lot of good comedy as well. But what really carried the movie for me was the sort of relationship with the Flash and his mother, and him having to kind of let it go and accept the fact that she, needs to remain dead. They did it very well. It was very touching. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. Another thing I thought was cool about this film is they actually have sort of an in-universe explanation as to why certain characters are going to be recast going forward. because sort of the timelines branching has changed a few things, which I don't really know how much of that is going to carry over to the new DC universe. They're rebooting it. We do know that some stuff is going to carry over from the old DC universe, because Peacemaker Season 1 was part of the DCEU, and Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be part of this new DCU. So at least one character is carrying over to the new universe. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. They kind of fumbled the bag with the new Aquaman movie, which I also saw. That was one of the worst movies ever made. There were some people who got mad about the fact that there are some cameos from actors that are currently dead in this movie done through CGI. And I just think, who gives a fuck? Moving on to number 4, we got a almost 4-hour long epic film. The new Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon. This is actually based on a book, which is based on a true story. The film follows this Osage tribe, who is this Native American tribe that accumulated a lot of wealth because their reservation is on top of a oil reserve. So they have become like millionaires, extremely rich, some of the richest people in the world. And 2 characters played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro scheme to marry into this Osage tribe and kill members so that they can acquire this money. Yeah, and the movie's very chilling to watch. It's a pretty wild story. The performances are excellent, especially by Leonardo DiCaprio and De Niro and the main woman, Lily Gladstone. The movie's paced very well. It doesn't feel like it's 3.5 hours. And yeah, I think the relationship between Leonardo DiCaprio and the Lily Gladstone was very well done. You really see this woman be destroyed. And then the FBI comes in and starts to investigate this. There starts to be, charges and convictions. And Leo's character goes down. And yeah, I think it was just a very, very great film. There's some pretty funny moments in it too. And yeah, it's just a banger movie. Now we get to my number 3 pick, which is going to be Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, another multiverse movie, also another part 1 movie. This is part 1 of a 2-part finale. And yeah, this film is great. It's better than the first, I would say. Whereas in the first movie, it's a lot of different Spider-Man coming to Miles Morales' universe. In this movie, we get to see Miles Morales go out to other universes, and each universe, the animation is completely different. It was really just stunning to see all these different universes. Also, each Spider-Man is animated completely differently. It's just a marvel to look at. It's pretty absurd. But also the story is very engaging as well, especially Gwen Stacy and her relationship with her father. Was very fleshed out and very sad. And they also established this concept of canon events, which if you've seen the movie, these are, events that you can't really change. These are core events that need to happen to every Spider-Man. And if these canon events aren't followed, somehow, like, the universes will fall apart or something. I forget exactly what the explanation is, but yeah, the characters really struggle with this. There's certain things that they want to change that they can't. And we'll see what happens in the finale movie. The character Spot was also pretty cool. He can basically kind of make portals and travel in and out. Animation for it just looked really cool. It's one of the best animated movies I've ever seen. Moving on to the number 2 movie of the year, and this may be a shocker. It is Oppenheimer, which follows Robert J. Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. He created the atomic bombs that were used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. And I talked before in a video I made on this. This movie is an absolute masterpiece. You really see the struggle going on in Oppenheimer's mind with sort of what he's done and what he's created, what his inventions were sort of used to do. One of the themes of the movie, is asking how much responsibility does a creator of a weapon have on how that weapon is used. There's a meeting with Robert Oppenheimer and President Eisenhower. Oppenheimer feels very guilty for what he's done. He, sees these dead Japanese people in his dreams. Eisenhower basically just looks at him. He's like, "I dropped the bombs. You didn't have anything to do with it. you whiny fag. Oppenheimer's character is just so well developed in the movie. A lot of the movie as well centers around these kind of trials, trying to revoke Oppenheimer's security clearance because of his associations with communists. And the fact that they were able to make these meetings so thrilling and so enthralling to watch just shows how great the writing is, how great the acting is. There's a lot of kind of non-linear storytelling, jumping around between sort of the two timelines, one where, you know, Oppenheimer is on trial getting his security clearance revoked, and one where the other character, played by Robert Downey Jr., is kind of getting fucked as well. They just made both these trials very interesting to watch. There's not a moment where you're bored at the movie. The explosion, of course, was amazing. The sound in the theater almost blew my ear sockets out. Yeah, this movie is just an absolute masterpiece, and Oppenheimer is literally me. The performances as well are amazing. As I said, Cillian Murphy's performance as Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. The one who played the communist woman that had her titties out was also a very good actress. There's really nothing bad about this movie. Another thing I really like about Oppenheimer that I forgot to mention is that it is incredibly historically accurate. For a lot of the dialogues in these hearings, they actually took them directly from the transcripts and almost did the dialogue word for word what they said. And yeah, that just goes to show that you don't have to make up bullshit to make an entertaining movie. You can actually make a historically accurate film and make it great. Now moving on to our best film of the year. What could beat Oppenheimer? You're probably wondering. I thought I just saw a fucking ghost. What could possibly beat Oppenheimer? It's John Wick 4. You knew it was coming. Every time a new John Wick movie comes out, I think we have peaked. Action movies have peaked. You cannot do action better than this. And every time I've been proven wrong immediately by the next installment in the John Wick franchise. In this movie, John Wick 4 has done it again. They've surpassed John Wick 3. They've surpassed all the previous movies to make the best action movie ever. Somehow they figure out a way to reinvent action movies with every installment. This movie, they do a lot of crazy shit. There's a scene with the Arc de Triomphe with cars driving around that's a masterpiece. A scene on a staircase that's a masterpiece. The whole final like hour or so of the movie is basically one continuous action sequence. We get a lot of downtime as well in this movie, more than the previous. Chapter 3 was basically action all the way through. Here, there's a lot more sort of downtime. We get a lot more dialogue. And the story, I really enjoyed the story. I really enjoyed these characters. There's this one character who's blind, and he fights with like his walking stick that was amazing. Another character, this black dude, who I think is called Nobody. I don't think he really has a name for the whole movie. He has this dog companion, and he kind of switches sides a lot throughout the movie because he wants to kill John Wick and get his bounty, but he wants the bounty to be as high as possible before he kills John Wick. So he'll frequently go, back and forth between sides, trying to keep John Wick alive, then trying to kill John Wick. It was kind of a very funny dynamic. They incorporate a lot of new weapons as well that we haven't seen John Wick use. Nunchucks, there's a cool sequence with nunchucks. There's a great sequence with a dragon's breath shotgun as well. That is probably my favorite scene in the movie. The dragon's breath shotgun scene is absolutely magnificent. I don't want to spoil exactly what happens because it's kind of a surprise in the movie, but they kind of play around with the camera angle in a way that is very video game inspired, clearly. And it blew my mind. I was like, wow. It's one of those things where after you see it, it almost seems obvious. How did they not think to do this before? Because it's worked so well in video games. How have we not thought to do it in a movie? And yeah, it just worked beautifully. It was immaculate. The movie is a masterpiece. The final scene as well. I really like the final showdown and what happens at the end that I don't want to spoil. But yeah, it's just a thrill ride for the whole runtime of the movie. Absolute banger. The only negatives of the movie are things that you might not notice at first, but once you notice them, you can't unsee it. is number one, they very obviously kind of fake fall down the stairs. You know, people will get thrown down the stairs and they'll sort of roll really far, but it's clear the actor didn't really fall that far. They're just making themselves roll. This has been present in the previous movies as well, but it's extremely egregious here in one particular scene. Also, when dogs bite people in the John Wick movies, you can tell they're clearly not actually, you know, biting into the people. They're just trained to grab onto the clothing and just drag it like that. Which is kind of, you know, once you see it, it looks kind of goofy. But yeah, other than that, it is the greatest film of all time. And yeah, apparently they're going to make a fifth one, according to the director. He said there's going to be a fifth one, which I don't really know how that is going to work, but I'm okay if they make 100 more John Wick movies, to be honest. I'll watch every single one. And yeah. Also, quick update, I do plan to post my top 5 games 2023. Unfortunately, I only really played through like 3 new games this year because there were a lot of like really long games that came out. There's 3 or 4 2023 games that I really wanted to play that I am gonna have to play through before I put that video out. So see you guys in the next one.